Hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and I'm going to delve into the incredibly confusing case of the disappearance and murder of Marta del Castillo. This happened back in Seville, Spain, in 2009, and it is probably the biggest case ever in Spain. It engendered a tremendous amount of emotion. People were in the streets. It was just protests and supports, and people angry at the supposed killer, people angry at people who covered up, people are angry at the police, people are just angry, a lot of anger, but I'll get to that. It is a very confusing case, full of lies, and just so many stories that it goes to show how difficult sometimes it is for the police to try to get to the truth, and then for the court case to get to the truth, if it even does, and then come up with an appropriate sentence and convict the appropriate people. So it's a big fat mess, but I'm going to try to work my way through it. So first of all, I want to say, I want to welcome the people here in the chat room, and I want to look at your comments as I go through, who help say hello to you, because many of you did see the show I recommended. It's on Netflix. It is called Where is Marta? It's a 3-part series. It's a little over 3 hours. It gets the reviews, if you look over IMDb, come out to be about a 6 or a 7. Some liked it, but a lot of people thought it was confusing, and it went back and forth too much, and didn't give enough information on evidence. And I have to agree with that aspect. It is confusing, but this whole case is so confusing. I don't know that that wasn't the whole reason it came out this way. I loved the documentary, and I rarely love these crime documentaries, but I love this one because it really showed how complex things are, and also the emotion of the people, and what happens to the family and the community. And so I did actually really love this documentary, but I have to say, as I go through this case, I'm going to have trouble putting things in their places as well, because when I finished, I wrote notes through the whole documentary, and I don't speak very good Spanish. So everything on YouTube is in Spanish, so I wasn't able to view those. I'm going to use Wikipedia as usual for my outline. There's just not a lot that I can access, so I can get everything in the perfect order, so I can know what all the details are and when things happen and when people made their statements. So I'm as confused as part of this documentary is, but I still think it's worth looking at, because I want to show how complex things can be. So I do want to welcome you to the chat room. And the chat room, by the way, let me say this before I start. If you'd like to be in the chat room, please do join Patreon, $5 a month. There are at least 8 live shows every month, 4 case files like this one, and 4 hangouts during the middle of the week. It helps the channel stay going because it is an educational channel. I don't believe things as long as I can just to make money, like some channels. And I try to stick with teaching. So please join if you'd like to either support the channel or be at the live shows. Also, please just subscribe to the channel, click the likes, click the bell for notifications, and you can always support the channel through any of the other things like buying books. All right, enough of that, but I want to go now to the chat room, because I want to look at your comments prior to the show, because it is interesting to see what you think, because some of you did watch that documentary, and I really appreciate that. I put out, this is the information that goes out to my patrons prior to the show, because I want them to have an opportunity to see what I saw when I go to analyze it. Of course, if you're new here to the channel or you're just coming in as a subscriber, it's cool. You can always just put the stop button on if you want and go over to Netflix if you have Netflix and watch Where's Marta, and then come back. All right. I can recommend that, actually. Good thing to recommend. All right. Let me say hello to you all. Okay. Who do we have here? And some really great comments. And I think it's really important I want to put these comments out before I start because I'm going to try to address them. Marta St. Louis. I'm not sure how to pronounce all of this. Marta St. Louis. Marta St. Louis. What a nest of vipers. Indeed, there is, because there's too many people involved in the actual crime scene. Or are they? Because we'll have this guy, I'm going to tell you the story in a minute, who is making claims and we don't know how much of it is true. And so I'll get to that. Can't wait for you to untangle this one, if I can. Oldest brother, the one found guilty, appears very shady. That's the older brother. All right. Joe says an interesting thing. A 21-year conviction. That would be this guy. He was the boyfriend of Marta, or the semi-boyfriend, or the ex-boyfriend. There's all kinds of ways to call him. I'll get to the whole story in a minute. He was convicted. Okay, got a 21-year conviction. Yet her body was never found. He says, looking forward to exactly what the evidence was. And I'm going to get to this whole issue of how did he get convicted? 21 years. I'll get to that. Let's see. Welcome to Amira. Welcome to Mary. Welcome, Michaela. You pulled an all-nighter. Good for you. That's awesome. Oh, and Tanya said she just watched the Netflix show. Awesome. Oh, you liked it. Okay. And a lot of times I don't like certain things that come out on Netflix, like Queen Cleopatra. Please do watch my Cleopatra series if you want the truth. And you'll find that in the playlist. Yes. Here's the thing. Sometimes I want to point this out to people. A lot of times people will there'll be a platform like Netflix and they will have something they're offended by or they think is garbage, and they'll kill the entire net platform. The problem is this, sometimes there's things I do not approve of on Netflix or on YouTube. And I'm on YouTube. Please do not cancel YouTube because I'm here. When you have open speech, open society where you can present things, you're always going to get things you disagree with. And sometimes the stuff that Netflix puts out, I'm like, seriously? But then again, some of the stuff is fabulous. And so, it depends on the production company and the writers and everything else. So, I was over at, I did go to HBO Max and watch The Idol. Don't do that. That is one of the most despicable shows I've ever seen, like the worst of the worst. Don't do that. I will probably do an actual video on The Idol and what the heck is wrong with all those people in it and how sick are they? But I'll get to that another time. All right. Down Under is here. You made it. Fantastic. This is interesting. Tonya says, I feel so much for her family. Indeed. And I'm going to point that out in a little bit. The Spanish police didn't come out bathed in glory, and neither does their justice system. I feel sorry sometimes for the police and the justice system because most people have never, ever been involved in it, and they don't know how difficult it is. And I can tell you from doing profiling for years, I know what happens from the beginning of a crime to the end of a crime. As far as the investigation goes, I've seen police departments put their all into it, but maybe they lack training and it all goes to hell. Or maybe they just can't find the evidence. And then everybody blames them for not finding the evidence that never existed. Even as a profiler, I might profile something. And I get comments that aren't very nice, all kinds of things, attacks because somebody disagrees with me. So it can be open warfare because people want a nice little package with a little bow on it. They think that a crime occurs, the police roll in, they get top forensics, everything's done, there's DNA, there's whatever, and everything's perfect and it's wrapped up and the proper person goes to prison. Don't we all wish? But that's not the way it works. And the fallout comes down to let's blame the police department and the justice system. Now, sometimes they do contribute themselves to part of the mess. So I'm not exonerating them completely, but I'm just saying, let's be a little bit fair about this. Okay, so let's see. We have Walter Matilda from Australia who says, so many liars. And this is one of the problems in the case. Yes, so many liars. Couldn't, what? Oh, there we go. Tonya says, couldn't agree with Walter Matilda. Yeah, couldn't agree more. Sorry. Words matter. Couldn't agree more. Sorry, I almost stabbed you in the back there, Tonya. All right. Michaela's here from Melbourne. Did I say that right? Melbourne? Okay. And by the way, this is a Spanish case, and I just want to say right up front to the Spanish people, I do not understand entirely the Spanish legal system, so please stay calm and realize that I'm not trying to get into that. So if you have information on the Spanish justice system, please put it below. You can correct me all over the place on that. And also, I'm going to do my best on Spanish pronunciation of names. And if I screw that up, again, I apologize. I'll do my best. Let's see. Marta, I wish I knew how to pronounce your name. Vacation in Seville. And by the way, it says Seville here. I cannot say the word Seville. It just kind of bugs me. My daughter and I were in Seville a while back, maybe in 2009 when the case happened. Maybe we were in that. Maybe we were in there. Maybe we were one of the people that helped cover up the crime. Why not? You might as well add us to the mix. All right. Her poor family. All right. Yes, indeed. Texas Redhead is here. Let's see who else. Lisa S is here. I'm probably going to miss somebody here, but I'm trying to get your comments before I start the show. Just because I think it's such an interesting show that I like to comment on. Down Under with Love is here from Queensland. I'm sorry, it is like 78 degrees in the house. My air conditioning can't keep up with the Maryland weather, and so I'm getting foggy glasses. And Lisa said, you can see and hear me. Oh, thank God, I forgot to ask. Oh, Lord. Oh, I'm going to get to that. Hannah Peterson says, I saw Netflix and the mobs were scary. I'm going to show you that in a little bit into the show about how the citizenry coming out, which never happens in the U.S. unless it's usually kind of a racial incident. But in this case, they came out and in force, and it's just something that doesn't really happen in the U.S. like that. So it's unique to, I don't know if it's unique to Spain, but it's definitely not something that happens where I live in any way, shape, or form. Walter Matilda says, all the lying made me feel fatigued and despondent. Even as an observer, can't imagine how it was for Marta's loved ones. Yes, there's so many lies. It's unbelievable. Yeah, Tikkun said, made it on time. That's fabulous. Walter Matilda says, watched all 3 Netflix episodes. My husband asked, what are you doing? I said, my homework. Tu tarea. Yeah, that's my Spanish ability. Your homework. Tu tarea. Am I correct? Who knows? Oh my God, CJ's here. Oh, aren't you sweet? Worth more than the $5. I like your attitude. That's awesome. Lexine is here from Newfoundland. Hello. Okay, I'm just looking for commentary here. Charlotte is here. Oh, you also watch the whole Netflix show. Seems like a mess. Everyone changing the stories. Yes, indeed. All right. Michaela says, how many people did Peacock lose over Casey Anthony? Well, that did suck. That Casey Anthony thing shouldn't have ever happened. All right. Let's see. I might be missing. Carrie is here. Mira says her father's Spanish. The liars could at least have revealed where Marta's body is. I keep wondering if the silence was due to the DNA her body held. That's an interesting question. Her body has never been found. And why not? And was it so well hidden, or was it just accidentally put someplace where they just got lucky? It was never found. That's a good question. Florence is here. And okay, I think I might have missed somebody, but okay, let's get to the case now. It's hotter than hell in here. All right, going to my famous Wikipedia. And all you haters out there, sorry, I use Wikipedia because it just seems to work for me. All right, Marta del Castillo. And again, to the people who live in Spain, I apologize for my pronunciation. Marta del Castillo Casanueva. That's her full name. was a Spanish high school student who disappeared and was presumably murdered on January 24th, 2009. Despite extensive searches and the conviction of Miguel Carcano Delgado in 2011, her body has never been found. The case is popularly known in Spain as the disappearance of Marta del Castillo, or simply as Marta del Castillo case. All right, now let's find out a little bit about Marta and this dude. All right, so, sorry. I'm just getting rid of the glasses. They're fogging up so bad I can't use them. Oh, Lord, live stuff, I tell you, it's wonderful. All right, okay, this is Marta. Marta is 17 years old. And her okay, this is how this kind of works. Miguel, also known as Miguel, a little nickname, he's 19. Some people go, oh my God, why was she going out with a 19-year-old? Seriously? It's 2-year difference. That is not a big deal. All right. But she'd only known him I don't know how long she had known him. Mind you, I just want to point out that some of the facts in the case are very hard for me to get to. And I've researched a lot and I'm just left kind of not knowing. All right. So, but they've been dating for 6 weeks. I don't know how long they knew each other. 6 weeks. She was head over heels with him, but they had just kind of called it off, or she called it off. We don't quite know how that worked. Essentially, this dude was controlling. She had some issues with him, but she still really was into him. He is what you call the bad boy. And there are some people who are very upset about the fact that, people tried to disparage Marta by saying, oh, she's hanging around the wrong crowd. She's whatever. And he's the bad boy. And it's not fair, but there's also reality here that there is that thing about bad boys. I'm just going to be straight up. Okay, you got the nice boy over here. And he's like, hi, Marta, do you want to go have a little cafecito with me? And she's like, it's so boring, man. And then this dude, he rolls in. He rolls in with his motorcycle. And I'm going to say, if I were not 67 years old, I might hit that. Oh, that is so unprofessional, as people say about me many times. But was she attracted to him? Absolutely. Why not? Now, what is his job? He's 19 years old. He was cleaning at a bingo hall. Obviously not doing extremely well in life. His family was kind of, shall we say, all kind of screwed up. But she met him, and he kind of, he came and he wooed her, and the family was not excessively happy, shall we say. All right, let's take a little bit longer look at Miguel, okay? So while she was in the 6-week relationship with Miguel, the problem was Miguel, this is the amazing part. Okay, so he was in a relationship with this girl who was 14. Yes, indeed. 19, 14. Cute pictures. They're so together. And he lives at her mom's house. Now, he does have another home, sort of home with his older brother, which is where this whole incident went down. But he also stayed with his girlfriend, his 14-year-old girlfriend. And her name is Rocio. And that's a little squirrely. All right. So there may be some issue with the fact that Marta wasn't too excited about the fact that she'd been into this dude for 6 weeks, and then she finds out he's living with a 14-year-old girl. She had some issues. So somehow they sort of semi-broke up. I don't know what, they weren't, quote, together. And some people are very upset in her family when they call him her ex-boyfriend. They say, hey, that wasn't actually what he was. Okay. But she still was in connection with him, having some kind of relationship with him, which is why she went with him that day. And this is important. I've always said many, many times, one of the problems, what happens when you're hooked up with somebody you shouldn't be hooked up with, is that if you ever disentangle, you shouldn't get back together again, because there was a reason that it wasn't a good idea to begin with. All right, so I want to point out a couple things that her friend said about Miguel. Okay, so here's Miguel. Hold on a second. Where's my commentary on Miguel? Okay, hold on a second. Looking for it. So many places it could be. All right, let's see. Oh, here we go. All right, so here's Miguel again. Doesn't look bad sometimes. I'm not a cougar. I can appreciate beauty. All right. Anyway, so what does one of his friends say? Let me hold on a second. I got to change my screen because I can't see crap. All right. She says he was a compulsive liar. And it was also stated that he was good at telling stories that made people feel sorry for him, and he achieved everything he wanted. I'm going to say, from what I heard, he has the makings and behaviors of a psychopath. So the problem with a psychopath, if that is what he is that he can indeed draw a girl in. This kind of psychopath, not every psychopath. Some psychopaths are just creepy weird, and you're like, no. But there are others who are very charming and very smooth talking. And for a 17-year-old girl, she can't tell the difference between a psychopath and a non-psychopath, except that after they were together 6 weeks, she's like, she did separate from him because she was concerned. And she said to her own mother, he was controlling, which is another sign of a psychopath. And this is when a person is controlling, you don't ever want to get back under their control. You just want to be as far away from them as you can possibly be, because control means they think you are their toy, their pet, that you should do whatever they wish you to do. You should follow their commands and their demands. That's not a healthy relationship. So if anybody's controlling, run away really fast. But oftentimes what happens is they're also fancy talkers. So it's easy for them to talk you back into something. And I say, it ain't that bad looking. Okay. So I can see where Marta's like, oh my God, he's 2 years older than me. He's like, he's really cute. And so that day, let me tell you what happened. All right. So she was chatting with her friend on Messenger. And so I can't read, blurring out again. Sorry. Gee, it's so hot in here. It's ridiculous. Okay. All right. So he, around 5 o'clock, let me go back. Let me go back to, just want to put Marta in the picture here. Because I think and everybody says nothing but good things about Marta, by the way. I just want to point that out. She was a fun-loving girl. She was sweet. One of the things they do in this documentary really well is they go back, and this is heartbreaking. It really is. They go back to when she's a baby. And being a mother of 3 and a grandmother of 1, when a child is brought into your life, whether it be by birth or by adoption, and I've had both in my life, it's so special. And then you're so happy you have this child, and then they grow up, and so they show all these times when she was born, and her mom was holding her, and her dad's holding her, and her uncle is hanging out with her and taking her to the beach. And you see this whole life of Marta, and she seemed to have very good parents and a very good extended family. So she was a lucky girl until that day. And that's why I think the whole town was so upset. Why Seville just went nuts, because she represented, in a sense, everybody's very loved child. And all she did was go out with this guy and never come back. So she was, they really brought that forth, I thought, in the documentary, and I really liked that part of it. All right, so then around 1700, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, Marta told the family she would spend the evening with friends, and she left the family home. It says here, del Castillo's mother had previously warned her about Carcano, that's Miguel Carcano, and the names are a little tough, so I'm going to try to keep them. It took me a long time to get them all in order. Claiming that he had a profile of a domestic abuser. All right. In the documentary, you see it a little bit differently, by the way. So this is Wikipedia, the documentary. Who knows where the truth lies? But supposedly, she was going to go hang out with her friends, but then she got a phone call from him. She went downstairs, and he was waiting outside for her with that motorcycle, you see. And her daddy was bringing home groceries, and he saw her outside with this guy, and he said, he didn't say don't go with the guy. He said, I don't want to see you riding that motorcycle. And this is kind of important for an issue later on. So he said, I don't want to see you riding that motorcycle. And then he went in the house, and I'm pretty sure she just jumped on the motorcycle and left with him, So they went off, and they were gone for some time. And then the problem is she never came home. All right. When she was late getting home, her family called her cell phone, which was on for the first hours, but she didn't respond. Then they called her friends, including some of the people later accused of her disappearance, like Miguel here, and a guy named Samuel Benitez. All right. Okay. Let me just point out the trio here. So he had a bunch of friends. Okay. These guys. All right. So here we have Miguel, and here we have the guy we'll call Samuel Benitez. I'm going to call him Samuel just to keep it simple. Miguel, the supposed boyfriend, is ex-boyfriend, Samuel, and this kid. These guys, he was 19. I can't quite come up with his age, but he was an adult. And then this kid here, his name, he is known as El Cuco. That's not his real name, but they're going to call him Cuco through the whole thing. So let's just call him Cuco. He's 15 years old. Some people say 16, but he was a juvenile. And supposedly he really liked Marta. He was kind of like had a little crush on her. All right. But these dudes, they were like, they say a gang. They weren't a gang. They were just a trio of friends hanging out together. And he was the young one hooking up with these guys. And he was kind of enamored by being accepted by the older guys, hanging out with them. It was all very cool. So he came from a messed up family. So, he's got his kind of like older brothers. All right. So you got Miguel, you got Samuel, and you got El Cuco. And I'll just stay with that for now, because otherwise you're going to get totally confused. And here they are. They're all hanging out together. So again, on the left, you'll see Miguel, and El Cuco is the kid in the middle, and the other guy on the right side is Samuel. Okay. Now, I'll show you another one just so you can try to get the relationships, because it does play into this whole thing, and it's so confusing. All right. Here we have Marta at the top. All right. And we have so we have Miguel in the middle there. So you see Miguel, he's hooking up with Marta. But you also see to the right, who's hooking up with the 14-year-old Rocio, who's over there, Rocio Perez. That's who he's living with, and her mommy. And then to the left, you see Samuel Benitez, that's his friend. And then over there, you see El Cuco over there on the left. Below him, you'll see his brother, Francisco Javier Delgado. I'm just going to call him Delgado from here on out. And over to the left, let's see, how does this work? It gets very confusing. He's got an ex-wife, and then he's got this woman named Maria Garcia Mendaro, and she plays a part in this because she ends up saying she was at the apartment the whole night, and she never saw a thing. So it's just kind of odd. All right. So anyway, that's the kind of group we got here. Okay. We got these three dudes, and we've got Delgado. the brother of Miguel and Delgado's girlfriend, not his ex-wife, but his girlfriend, who supposedly also showed up and stayed at the house for the entire night and never saw a damn thing. All right, so there's a lot of people who were there or not there, and there are people who are telling the truth or not telling the truth, and this is what the police had to deal with. It was a nightmare, absolute nightmare. So anyway, what's the story here? Okay, so she disappeared. The family didn't know what the heck happened to her. Then, they eventually filed a police report. They went over to the house. They started beating on the windows of the house where he lived, and where that girlfriend of his brother was supposedly she was there, but she never answered the door, and she supposedly never heard a thing. People slamming on, all very strange. Anyway, what did he say happened that night? All right, so he said something kind of interesting. He said he was out with her until about 21:30, which is 9:30. Okay, 9:30 p.m. And then let me see if I can find the thing I wanted to show you here. Okay, where is it? Oh, really? Oh, you know me and my picture issue. Maybe it's over here. Hold on. We must have patience or drink wine. One of those two things. Okay. So anyway, this is the location where Miguel supposedly took Marta for a period of time after they ran all over the city. Then they supposedly came here. Here's his motorcycle. Okay. But later on, he says he took Marta home. And that's not the picture. Crap. It vanished on me. Ignore that completely. All right. So, yeah, my picture vanished. All right. So later on, he said he took her home. What's interesting is he did not drop her at her door. He dropped her down the street. Okay. Yes. So the question is, why did he drop her down the street and not at the location she actually lived at? What's up with that? So she's living essentially here, but he drops her closer to the corner. Now, I want to say something about how suspicious that is, or it may not be. So this again is where the police run into problems. Oftentimes, when a killer has killed someone, they want to say they dropped them home. But since they weren't seen there, or there's no reason why if they dropped that person at their home, at their front door, this is not a front door because my picture vanished. All right, so if he dropped her at her front door, why didn't she just go in? Why didn't he watch it? No, I don't know about you guys, but if I drive somebody home, now it's funny because even if they go to work every day and arrive home at 2:00 in the morning and get off a train and walk to their own home and go in, I don't feel responsible for that. They could get killed every single night. But if I drive them home, I always feel like it's my responsibility to see them go into their house. So I drive up and I sit, I wait until they get the key in the door opens and the door closes. Then I leave. I don't know. It's funny. It's a funny thing when you consider that you pay no attention to them the other 364 days of the year. But that one day when you're responsible, and it's certainly a young man taking his girlfriend or a semi-girlfriend home, you would think he'd pull up in front of the door with his motorcycle and watch her go in. But he didn't. He supposedly dropped her down the street. Why? Well, I'm going to tell you. A lot of killers will say they drop the person somewhere near their home, but not at their home. Why do they say this? They do this because that gives them it gives an opportunity for another person to kidnap that person, to abduct them from point A to point B. See, I dropped her over at the corner and I didn't see her go into the house because I dropped her at the corner. I don't know what happened between the corner and the house. This is an old ploy by a lot of killers. I dropped her, but not at the exact location. So he says he didn't drop her at her door. This is not her house. This is his house. But if her house were behind me, didn't drop her at the door, but dropped her down the street at the shop, in front of the shop. Now, Is that one of those lies where anything going to happen to her? You say, I dropped her off and she just never made it to her front door. Well, in this case, because we know he killed her, I'm going to say that is exactly the reason he made that claim. However, there are some reasons why an innocent person could say they dropped her at some other location. It could be because her daddy didn't want to see her on a motorcycle. And so she's like, don't drive up to my front door, drop me here, and I can walk over and say I got a car ride home. That could be the reason. It could be that it's a one-way street. And she's like, don't go around the block, just drop me here. So there are other reasons why somebody could do this. And if you're going to investigate a case or analyze a case, you have to be at least willing to look at the other possibilities. But yes, is it a common thing for a killer to say, I dropped her someplace near, but not exactly at her door? Because he wants to come up with a reason why she could have been abducted at that point by some other human being? Yes. So do I think that's why Miguel said that? Probably yes. But then again, there's always other possibilities. All right. So he claimed he dropped her at this location down the street, and she never got there. Family comes over here. They're beating on the windows, and nobody answers. And they file police reports, and she never shows up again. All right. So everybody searches for her. The town goes crazy. They try to find. Oh, by the way, they also went here, and they were led into at least the hallway close, and the door was open to the apartment, and they could smell bleach. The mother said, I smelled really strong bleach, which made her really suspicious that something bad had happened in that apartment. All right. So they reported her disappearance at 2 a.m. in the morning. All right. So then they started investigating. All right. So I'll check some of your comments, and I'll go on to what happened from then on. Hold on a second. Let's see if I can see your comments through my blurry glasses now. Oh, sorry. Oh, don't want to be seen? Yeah, that's a good point. Definitely, I don't know if that's where your response is. Yes, the distance. Ultima Chola is correct. Distance, a window of opportunity. I like your this is a good terminology, a window of opportunity for someone else to take her. And in reality, a window of opportunity, people ask us about serial killers all the time. They're like, well, I don't understand it. The girl came out of work and she just vanished like that. And there are people there, like in a mall, outside, not like an outside mall. Why did no one see anything? Because it was a window of opportunity. And a serial killer often will go, they'll troll over and over again, or go through that location, watching, doing surveillance. And he could have had 50 almost windows of opportunity, but they didn't happen. So and then there was somebody standing there, and they're like, never mind. But one day they come up and there's this girl and they look like this and there's nobody there and she's gone. Could take just 5 seconds. It's a window of opportunity. So yes, so being clever, you might say, oh, I dropped her down there and there was this window of opportunity when she was walking along that something could happen to her. So wasn't me. So yeah, that's a great, I'm glad you brought that terminology up. What? you don't work on this platform. What happens is sometimes when you click things and they're supposed to come over, the clicking doesn't work and it doesn't end up where it's supposed to end up. Or I've lost my damn mind, which I just don't want to go there. All right. Yes, it's me and my team, which is absolutely nobody. All right. So, all right. So let me go on about now. So we have the boyfriend now. There's this problem. Girl's missing. There's something seriously wrong here. So he gives a story. Remember, he supposedly went home and stayed with his girlfriend, you see. And so they go to girlfriend's mom, and this is the 14-year-old. And they're like, hey, what was he wearing that night? Do you have his clothes? And she turns him over, and lo and behold, his jacket, if I haven't lost that picture. Yeah, here we go. His jacket. Oh, look at that. Marta's blood has been found on his jacket. That is not a good thing for good old Miguel. Okay, so now they have some evidence here that something happened to Marta. So they bring him in, and this is where they start arresting a whole bunch of people. They end up arresting Miguel for the crime. Then they also arrest his brother for possibly covering up, and they arrest Samuel, and they arrest El Cuco because they supposedly maybe were in on getting rid of the body. Okay, so you got 4 people essentially all in interrogation and arrest. Now, so what happens is there's the first, now what the biggest problem with this case is that Miguel Carcano, he gives like 8 different versions of what happened that night. And the frustrating thing is he implicates himself in a good portion of them, but because he keeps changing his stories about how it happened and then how the body was gotten rid of, it causes a whole lot of confusion. So what's the first one? His first version. Okay, so let's go to what his first version of the murder is. So he's interviewed and he confessed. He collapses and confesses to the murder. According to his testimony, he murdered Del Castillo during an argument on the night of January 24th. The reason for this argument was Carcano's relationship with the 14-year-old, right? Rothiel, sorry. I think, is that her name? Rothiel. She threatened to tell Rothiel about their relationship. And if he didn't stop seeing her. And so he got angry. And in a fit of anger, he was in the bedroom with her. And they're on the table. Let's see if I can find it. If that disappeared on me, I'm going to be so... Oh, do I have to be mad? Hold on, guys. Where'd my picture go? Hold on. So weird. Well, there we go. It vanished. Anyway, I'm going to show you this. All right. In the spur of the moment, he hit her on the head with an ashtray. Okay, there's one of the pictures. All right. So he claims that there was this heavy ashtray. And when they had this huge argument, he just got so pissed off, he picked up this ashtray and whacked her in the head with it. And then she fell to the floor. And she wasn't breathing, and there's blood coming out of her head, and eventually a pool of blood. And they didn't know what to do, okay, because now she was dead on his floor. And is this a reasonable story? First of all, I want to start out with, is this particular version reasonable? Yes, it is, in my opinion. Why? Because he's a control freak. He likes to dominate. I don't know what happened that night. Of course, he's going to blame her, mind you. She told me, she was going to tell my other girlfriend, blah, 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 so I get angry. It's always you're going to blame the victim, first of all, because, that's what made me do it. I have to use this particular terminology because it's accurate. It's called the bitch made me do it. Okay. It's over and over again. That's the terminology. So she made me do it. And if she hadn't done that and infuriated me, I wouldn't have done what I did. So that's his story. And they did not know what to do. He was alone with her. Nobody else was in the home. He was alone with her, and he hit her on the head and accidentally killed her. Since he didn't know what to do, he claims that, let me get our people up here. He claims that he contacted Samuel, right? Which is his running partner. You know what I mean? So he contacted him. And he came over and said, oh, gosh. And so what they did, Samuel even confessed to this, that they picked her up, wrapped her up in something, a blanket, and they put her on the motorcycle in between them, and they sandwiched her in between them on the motorcycle and drove to the river and dumped her into the river. Okay, so now they've gone to some place at this bridge and they dumped her over. So, all right, you've got, and this is where the problem comes in. I can't tell from the documentary whether what order these interviews are and who said what when. I don't know whether, for example, Samuel later said, I was never even there. He claimed the police pushed him into this. Did the police bring him in and say, this is what Miguel said? Miguel said you used the motorbike and dumped her in the river. And Samuel eventually just pushed into it and says, okay, I got there. The kid, I wanted to help my friend. So yeah, we put her on his motorcycle and I helped him dump her in the river. Was Samuel even there? And this is one of the questions. Now, originally they thought, okay. And so there was a huge search of this river and they never found her. But then the family said, we didn't believe the motorcycle story at all, because how the heck would you put a dead girl in between you and sandwich her and then drive all over town on the small motorcycle? Okay, so let's look at the motorcycle again that he had. So it's this motorcycle. Could they put the girl there and then Samuel get on back and he could hold her in place? The police supposedly do some tests that prove this could not have really worked out. It would be too hard to do. I feel a little bit, I don't know. I'm not absolutely sure I believe that, because I've been in India. And this is a picture I took in India. I'm sorry, but if you can get 5 people on a motorcycle, 5 of them, you can sandwich 5 people on there. I don't understand why you can't sandwich 3. Don't quite understand why that's not possible. But maybe they haven't been in India. Now, maybe they did tests and with weighted, this is what I don't know. And when I do these shows, I always point out what I'm trying to do is education, trying to take you through the thinking process, not trying to prove something, because I can't get hold of this information. I don't know exactly what tests they did to prove that it couldn't happen. But it's an interesting story that they came up with. And you think, well, why would they come up? What? But then there's this problem with Miguel. Miguel is a storyteller. Miguel comes up with a whole pile of nonsense stories and he changes his stories every 3 minutes. So since he is that kind of pathological liar, maybe that was a good story. Or maybe the idea was to get the police to go where she wasn't. And in order to get her to the river, the concept was, well, we'll just say we put her on the motorcycle, took her over to the river and dumped her off a bridge. And then you distract the entire investigation from where her body really is. So that's kind of his first confession. All right, then they searched the whole freaking river. And they did a lot of work, mind you. They did search. And by the way, when you're talking about let's see, I think so here you are in Seville, and they went to a certain place on the bridge. And so they're I think this is where they supposedly dumped her off the bridge, and the Puente de Camas, somewhere over that away. But whether that's true or not, we have no idea. Meanwhile, the town is going nuts, and I do want to bring this up. Oh, yeah, let me show you a couple pictures. They did a thing. Here they are. I've never seen this in the U.S. unless it was a racial incident. But they're just like, we are Marta, we are Marta. And here they are, we are all Marta. And they're fighting to try to find out what happened to Marta. And they put a lot of effort in. And just as an aside, I want to show what the mom went through. After this happened, the mom is talking about how she handled this. And she said, during the month and a half after Marta went missing, the only thing I remember is that they would wake me up. That would be her mother and her suegra, the mother-in-law. They would make me sit up, and they would give me broth or baby food to eat. Her husband was the one going out and talking to the press, and he was just crying and falling apart. It was really, really heartbreaking. So the whole town are all trying to find out what happened. So now they got him. they have got Miguel. And why have they got Miguel? It's because Miguel, well, he was there. They've got blood on his clothing. And so, sorry, this one. So Miguel clearly was there. His jacket has Marta's blood on it. So they got him. Now the question is, what about these two guys? Did they help him get rid of the body? And this is the problem. So we have Samuel goes ahead and says, yeah, we did it on the motorcycle. But the question is, later on, he never ever gets convicted because he says he was never actually there, that this was just something he said and he went along with because of police pressure. Do I believe that? I'm not sure. I kind of personally think both of them were there. And the reason I think that is because they're his buddies. And I think when he got into this situation, he called his buddies. That's my opinion. But, all right. So then he gave a second version. So then he says that what really happened was that El Cuco came over, his little 15-year-old friend. And in the Netflix video, he actually shows him showing how El Cuco committed the crime. All right. So mind you, they're in the bedroom now. El Cuco has his knife out, and he's got his knife next to Marta's neck. And he forces Marta to take off her clothes while he's holding the knife. No, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, I take that back. He's holding the knife against her neck, and he takes off Marta's clothes, which I'm not sure how he accomplishes it with a knife to her neck. Then supposedly at some point he gets her clothes off, and then he ends up taping her hands behind her back, and then he strangles her with a cord. He does all this while I guess Miguel is just sitting there going, have at it. It's my girlfriend, but hey, dude, you haven't had a girlfriend yet. You need a turn. It's like the stupidest story ever. So anyway, that was a ridiculous story. Why did they think he went to that story? They think he actually said this, and then he actually goes to another version. He says, "Okay, we both raped her together." So it's gone from a hit over the head with an ashtray to he raped her and did everything, and then, oh no, we raped her together and strangled her. And the question was, why would he go to rape? It's better off to go with the ashtray story. Why did he go to rape? And the idea was at that point in time, because of the crowds of people, he was the most hated person in Seville, maybe in Spain, that he was afraid of a jury trial because there were two versions, bench trial and a jury trial. And supposedly if rape were added to the mix, he could get out of a jury trial and get a bench trial. And he thought this was supposedly a smarter way to go. They kind of didn't believe the story. But then again, they've never found her body, so they have no idea what happened to Marta. And so now this El Cuco never agreed with the story that he raped Marta or was involved in any such thing or was even involved in her murder. He told the story. His story was he showed up after the murder when he was asked to come and help get rid of Marta's body. Now, but he made another interesting statement. He talked to his mommy on the phone. And while he was talking to his mommy on the phone, he asked if she had gotten rid of his knives, which is kind of a weird thing to ask your mommy. And so he had this knife collection, you see. And in the middle, if the second one down is called a butterfly knife. And oddly enough, in a right outside in like a, what do you call it, drainage area, they found this knife in there. And this was the knife they found, and it's a butterfly knife. No one admitted it was actually El Cuco's knife. But why was he asking his mother about his knives? And he's supposed to have an obsession with knives. So then the question is, well, maybe he was there. Maybe he did pull a knife on her. Or maybe he grabbed a knife off of El Cuco and used it. So what happened at this point was that his DNA and his DNA were in the bedroom. They didn't say what kind. I can't find out what kind of DNA, and he said, well, I'm always in the bedroom. And I believe that's true. So that his DNA is there doesn't prove he murdered Marta. Just prove he was maybe in a room either that night or another night. So they had him held, and they had him held. And Samuel for a while, and then he testified, and Samuel they just kind of went, well, whatever. Because they couldn't prove anything with Samuel at all. But his story changed again. Let's see, what was the third version? Okay. Let's see. It's hard to keep up with the versions. Eventually, he claimed that his brother was there at the time. And his brother and he had an argument because his brother was kind of a crook. And was committing some tax fraud and had used his name to get some property and he, all legal stuff. And they had this argument. And during the argument, Marta tried to intervene. And when she tried to intervene to protect her little sort of boyfriend, Delgado, the brother, pulled out a gun from his waistband and whacked her, with a butt a few times in the head, and he killed her. And then because he was the elder, the brother, the oldest, he had these other two kids come over, and all three of them were supposed to get rid of her body while he cleaned up the house. Well, really? Well, first of all, let me go back. Later on, when he said, El Cuco really didn't rape her, and he really didn't murder her, they said, well, why did you even say that? He says, well, El Cuco, when he came to the house, said that my brother was there. And he said he involved my brother, and that's why I got back at him, claiming he raped. Now, did they prove the brother came back to the house? The brother said he left the house before, as he was arriving with Marta, or he was, and he's like, okay. And he left the house, and he didn't come back that night. But for some reason, his girlfriend showed up that night, and she spent the whole late evening there doing studying for her school, and never heard a thing, never saw a thing. Yet, the house was well cleaned, bleach was used, and the luminol found a large amount of blood and blood. Yeah, a big, huge pool of blood. But they can't really prove the brother was ever there. Because there's a whole bunch of things with the phones. And if you watch the show, they'll have a ton of maps and so-and-so said this and the video showed that. And maybe the video means this. In reality, it's hard to say whether the brother was ever there, whether the brother was there when she was killed, or whether the brother showed up later to help manage this whole problem. Because after all, it was his house that the girl's dead in. Very confusing. But before I go, I want to mention the other thing. So after the one other thing they had, which I think is an interesting piece of information, is the issue of the wheelchair, which is a pretty unusual thing, mind you. So there's this wheelchair. Is that the wheelchair? There we got the wheelchair. Now, inside the house, there was a wheelchair. Because Miguel's Miguel's mother, I think it was, she became ill. She used a wheelchair. She died. The wheelchair was still there. At about 2:00 in the morning, a man outside, remember, originally they said they threw her body off a bridge. They never found it. A man outside was taking out his trash about 2:00 in the morning, and he saw two men, thin men, pushing a object in a wheelchair. He thought it was a rug or a carpet, something, rolled up in a blanket, for example, which at one point they said he used a blanket to cover her. He also said he put two trash bags, two black trash bags, put her body in the trash bags. And then I'm going to guess then into some kind of a blanket of some sort, maybe tied up at that point. It's quite interesting because during the thing where he says El Cuco attacked Marta, she taped up her hands behind her back and used the cord to strangle her. I wonder whether he's not talking about they used the tape to tape her arms to her and then put everything around her and then tie up with some kind of cord the blanket around her. In other words, in order to transport. So sometimes what a psychopath will do, or a killer will do, is they will take pieces of a story and they'll change it to a different kind of story, but yet the pieces are actually there. They're just in the wrong order or in the wrong place. And since everybody lies here and makes up tons of stories, I'm going to say this could be one of them, that he's actually not talking about raping or murdering her. In that instance, he's talking about putting her body in this situation where you can put the body in a wheelchair. Now you ask why? Bodies are, to take her out, to get her out of the house, all right, without carrying her out, put her in a wheelchair and wheel it. And so this guy says he saw them down by the trash cans outside at 2 o'clock in the morning. He saw them with this thing, and he thought, oh, it's kind of a weird time to be throwing away your trash. But then he was throwing away his trash, so it's not that weird. Then he saw them come back, or one of them come back with just the wheelchair. Now, one of the confessions, Miguel says that's exactly what they did. They put her body in the wheelchair, took her out, and threw her on those trash cans. And so then, now mind you, this didn't come up till 2 months later. And so then they go and try to go to the trash dump and try to find her body there. And they dig the living crap out of that place and never find her. Now, I looked into how often, what the problem is. The tonnage, if you're talking about, they can identify, if you're taking a look at this location, they can identify certain areas that if you have trash taken from this particular street, it goes to a certain area on the trash dump. That's what I hear. So they can know a specific area which they might want to focus in on. But 2 months had gone by, so the amount of tonnage of trash that was put in afterwards would be ridiculous. And apparently most excavations of those kinds of sites, those landfills, don't go well, and they never find bodies, in spite of the fact they think the body's there. Her body was never found there. Was her body ever there, or is it in a river? So then the story changes later on that then, oh my goodness, they didn't dump her there. What they did was they got El Cuco, the 15-year-old, to go get a now from his relatives, and the 15-year-old, drove the car back, and they put her body in the car, and they drove it off and dumped her in some fields. So they're now they're digging up fields, kind of like the Battle of McCann case in Portugal, right? Now they're digging up fields that people are pointing to. Rocío, the girlfriend, says, oh, he said it was there, so they go dig there, and it continues. The nightmare continues. The question of where her body is, well, it's obviously never been found. Now, the other possibility is that the brother, the brother who is considered, some of them people think he's the mastermind of everything here, somehow he if he didn't kill her, at least he masterminded, what happened to her, right? So so he used his car, which he didn't have with him, because people are driving him all over the place, and he's taking taxis. But anyway, somehow this white car that he does have somewhere comes back, and he puts the body in there, and there's never any evidence that links her body to any of the cars. So there you go. So what happens in the long run here? All right. So this guy, he goes to court. He's got his lawyer. It's interesting. He eventually goes back to the story that he just hit her with it. He just hit her with with the ashtray. They had a fight, hit her with the ashtray, and said, oh my God. He called his friends. They got help. So he ends up going with that story. Now, his lawyer, I'm going to find a picture of his lawyer here. She had, hold on a second. Oh, but I want to tell you how they also try to find the body, by the way. Yeah. They actually use this new technique where they were trying to show him different pictures, and he got about a certain picture, his brain would go like that. So this is why they're looking at this landfill now over near Camas, and they still didn't find her body, but it was a nice try. Nice try. But the lawyer he had, see if I can find her. Oh, lawyer. Oh, lawyer. Seriously. I'm telling you, the picture is so tiny you can't ever see the damn things. It's so frustrating. So frustrating. So if you don't know where the picture is, a lot of times you can't hardly see the damn thing. Let me see if I can find the lawyer. I wanted to put her name up here because. Oh, here she is. Okay. So he had this lawyer. Her name is Paloma Perez Sandino. She is the lawyer, the abogada for Miguel Carcano. Okay, there she is. What she tried to do was, let me find it here. I want to tell you what happened with all the different, the trial here. Okay, so nobody knew exactly what happened. Even the judge thought maybe the seventh version he told. So like 8 versions, I don't know. That the brother actually killed Marta and, with the gun butt thing. But there's no proof that that's true, so they couldn't really go with that. Yeah. Anyway, El Cuco got a shorter sentence. Let me go back to our people just so you can see them. Let me go back to those who got sentenced. Okay. El Cuco got the shortest sentence because although his DNA, so they found his DNA along with Miguel's at the crime scene, but not anything that proved he murdered her, just that he was there. It did not prove he was involved in the murder, and he was a juvenile. So he was in a juvenile institution. He was detained, and he'd been detained there a really long time. So when he was convicted of unlawful concealment, so they believed since he was there, he helped him get rid of the body. One of those with the wheelchair. They believed the wheelchair scenario the most. Now, whether the wheelchair went to the trash, like the guy saw them toward that area, or whether it went to a car and they put her in a car and then took her and dumped her someplace. Those are two things. I'll talk about that in a second. But they thought, okay, he got unlawful concealment and got 3 years, which basically was how long he'd been in there. So he just basically walked out at that point. At the trial, Miguel says they argued. He hit her with the ashtray, and then he called the friends, and they helped get rid of the body. And he stayed. He says that they got rid of the body, and he stayed and cleaned up the house. Well, if they only went to the trash can, the dumpster, I think at that point maybe his friends just fled, and he went back home. And his brother may have shown up to help clean up the house because his brother wanted to make sure that this wasn't going to be a noted crime scene. That's what I kind of think happened. And that's why he says he doesn't know where the body is, you see, because if his 2 friends put her in a car and took her away and dumped her, he wouldn't know where she is. Of course, on the other hand, if she would put in a dumpster and ended up in a landfill, nobody could find her, he doesn't know either, right? Then the ashtray scenario, though, think about this, is the least damaging version. Maybe his lawyer came up with that version. We don't even know. I don't know when exactly the lawyer came into the picture and when the ashtray story came into the picture. So there's 2 possibilities. One is that he killed her in a controlling fit of anger, or that he actually did rape her. The ashtray story is, in my opinion, a little more believable because of the kind of guy he is. I don't know that I really believe that she was raped, but that he would kill her in a fit of anger, absolutely. So it's hard to say. Yeah, it is a less damaging story, that's for sure. So the lawyer requested negligent homicide because it was just an argument that went bad. And she requested a 3-year sentence, the same that he got, because Marta's death was a result of an argument and a single blow. Of course, we don't know it was a single blow. He could have beaten her with that thing 20 times, mind you, which I think it may have been more than one time. So the part where he changes his story slightly to be less damaging in his own mind might not be that I beat her to death, but I only hit her once and it was just an accident. I didn't mean, he said he didn't use much force. I don't believe that for a minute. So the chances of him getting furious with her and picking up something and just beating her to death is more likely. But he could tone that one down. So anyway, this was the attempt that the lawyer made, was say negligent homicide. You don't have any proof of the rape. You don't have any proof that he did anything more to her than hit her once with an ashtray. And you would think that would be pretty good. I mean, I think that's pretty reasonable for the lawyer, defense lawyer, to come up with, to tell you the truth. But interesting enough, let's see. He got 21 years. Samuel got off, his brother got off because they couldn't prove either one of them was actually there. And he got 21 years. And I'm really kind of shocked that he got 21 years. And this goes back to what Joe was saying. He's like, how did he get 21 years for something that wasn't proven to be anything more than, not a premeditated homicide, not a homicide that occurred during a rape, but an argument that he lost his temper during. I am surprised he got 21 years. Do I think he should have gotten 21 years? Well, I think he's a psychopath. I'm not too bent out of shape, but I kind of think that was kind of long for theoretical what it was. But the question is, if he did dump her in the in the dumpster, and she's in the landfill, like he did claim at one point, well, then he would actually not know where her body is other than it went in the dumpster. If he did dump her in the river, as he once claimed, then where her body is in the river, he wouldn't know either. Now, if he specifically buried her someplace, then he would know. Now, let me stop here. This is not a mastermind. This is not a mastermind. This isn't a mastermind. And that brother, although he may say, shut up, don't say anything, let's clean up the house, I don't think that guy's a mastermind either. And I don't know that he was even there, how early he was there. The fact, here's what I think this is why I think I think 21 years, as much as I think he deserves them, I'm surprised he got that. But I think the judiciary gave him more time than they had to. And the jury found, I'm surprised that people are upset about that, because I think it's pretty damn long considering they didn't have much proof. The only proof they actually had was he confessed a whole pile of times. A number of his, and the confession did point out that the location of her death was the house he was in with her. So he confessed he killed her. He confessed he killed her in that house. The only evidence they had that he actually killed her was the blood on his clothing and his confession. And as far as anybody else, only thing they had was that their confessions, and that Kuko might have been in the house, but that's very weak. As far as where her body is put, he changed his story gosh knows how many times. He does know which story is true, but since he constantly lies and he's not stopping, it's hard to know which one of the stories is true as to how he got rid of her body. But the only real evidence of how the body was gotten rid of was the wheelchair had his DNA and it had Marta's DNA. And why would her DNA be on that wheelchair? Normally wheelchairs are stored, they're like pushed together in a corner. Her DNA should not be on that wheelchair unless she was actually in that wheelchair. And his DNA shouldn't be there. More reasonable than hers, but hers was there. So yes, do I believe they put her in the wheelchair and pushed her out of that place? Yes, I do. Now, from that point on, where did her body go? It had to go in. It could have gone onto the motorcycle, which supposedly they've disproven. It could have gone into a car, but they haven't found a car and a person that really came and did anything with the car. They haven't proved that very well. But the one thing they did have was a witness that said he saw them at the trash area, the basura. They said what they call that? What are those things called? The trash bins, the big ones. Anyway, they saw him. The witness saw two guys pushing her there. He says actually all three of them are there, but okay, at least two of them pushed her there. And then he saw a guy going back without anything in that wheelchair. Well, if he saw them over there at the trash bins, I'm going to say the likelihood of her body being disposed of in those trash bins is more likely than being put on a motorcycle or in a car. And since they did not investigate those bins earlier, and it had been raining heavily, so I don't know when they actually took the bins away. or dumped the trash into the trash truck and took the trash truck off the landfill. Don't exactly know, but they didn't go to the landfill for 2 months. So a massive amount of trash went to that landfill after that point. I believe that he got 21 years is amazing, because I really only think it was proved that he hit her with an ashtray, because that was his confession. And there was no other reason to believe anything else happened, because it wasn't proven. So I'm surprised he got as much as he did. And as far as where her body is, I believe the landfill is where she's at. Probably would never be found. But that is this is where when you're looking at evidence, this is what I really want to point out about the whole thing. For all the lies and all the changing stories and all the possible people involved, in the long run, the evidence that they had, the only evidence that they had, the reasonable evidence, was they hit her with an ashtray and that they dumped her body in the trash bin. That's the most reasonable evidence, coming from the blood on his jacket, his confession, and the wheelchair. So you can, sometimes when people go down these rabbit holes, they will come up with 500 other thousand pieces of evidence, but they're not really evidence. It's information. It's guesswork. It's a phone here and a phone there, but it's not actual evidence. And the actual evidence here is those things. So if you stick with the actual evidence, the police did, in the long run, they got as much as they could out of it, and the prosecution got way more out of it than I think they could have gotten out of it. Now, did I say the police did their jobs correctly? I don't know. I don't know how they did their interrogations. I don't know if they could have proven more. I don't know. I just don't. But I think they got the right guy. I think he got a reasonable sentence. This guy, he probably, I don't even know if he was there, but I think he probably was, but he couldn't, nobody proved it. So, and he didn't kill the girl. So could he have helped out killing her? Well, I kind of doubt he's a little 15-year-old. I don't think so. And he kind of liked the girl. So I think it's more likely he's like, oh my God, what happened to Marta? And he's like, he tells stories. She, God knows what he said she did at the time to get him to help out, and to maybe get him to help out, maybe get his brother to help out. And a brother, by the way, his brother was a crook, was in a tax fraud, supposedly did tax fraud, supposedly claimed his brother, used his brother's name and whatever to get certain mortgage stuff. Why would the brother help him? Well, maybe because he did know stuff about his brother. His brother didn't want out there. So he's like, you messed me over. So don't, and then, okay, fine, I'll help you out, but don't, keep your mouth shut. Keep your mouth shut. So maybe he did help out. As far as covering, and never got charged with it. But I think the prosecution got as much out and more than I would expect, with considering what the evidence was. All right, let me go look at all your massive comments here. Oh, Lord. Let's see. I'm going to roll down here. Let's see. Technical problems are part of my charm. I don't know about that, but it's just what it is. I mean, as I say, I don't have a studio. I don't have a team of 5 people doing all this stuff ahead of time. I don't have huge screens up there with big, huge pictures on them. You get what you get. The pictures, I'm telling you, the pictures are literally this big, and you're like, what the hell is that picture? And a lot of times, it's not as easy as people think. And I'm just, this channel doesn't earn enough income for me to get these fantastic helpers. Not happening. Okay, let's see. I'm going to go back here. I'm not sure what that is over here. Walter Matilda says the motorbike sandwich, aka the first fairy tale. There was a comment in the documentary, something about the river always yielding a body, like it would have to show up eventually, and it didn't. Yeah, they always say that crap, and I don't know how true it is. I really don't, because first of all, the place was so freaking murky. They said they couldn't even see anything in the river at all when the divers went in. And it's a very big, long river. I don't know. I hear this all the time, that the body would show up, but I've seen bodies not show up for years and years and years. So I don't know that I believe that. But the sandwich, the concept of it would be, okay, so you got this body, you got her all wrapped up now. So now you have to put her on the motorcycle between the two of you. Again, I would like to do this is one of these crime scene reenactments. I'm sure the police did this. This is why they didn't believe it after a while. But I believe in crime scene reenactments. So, unlike that Indian family had 5 people on the motorcycle. Some of it depends on how big the motorcycle is and how big the people are and what circumstances. Now, a body that is not helping you out, okay? A dead body is a dead weight. And it's also, the problem is, as you're going down the road, you turn the corner, that person's not helping. Like they don't have any arms to put around the driver, right? So they're like this, and they go around the corner, and all that weight just shifts. So the guy behind has to be holding on somehow to that body, and the body doesn't have the legs going down on either side, right? So it would be really tough to accomplish this. And then you have to look at emotions. One thing that is true for killers is that when they put the body on the motorcycle, there's a word going through their head that is dead body. Well, it's 2 words: dead body, dead body, dead body. And as they take off going down the street, they're thinking, everybody's looking at them thinking, guy, dead body, guy. And they're thinking, the police are behind me because we have a dead body. It's very, very stressful. It's stressful to go all the way through. Now it's nighttime, which helps out, all the way through the city to get to the river and then pull over and then dump the dead body in. It was not, I do not believe it happened. But I think you'd have to put all those different things together to see whether it has reasonableness. So I would say that's gone. So now we're left with, they definitely put her in the wheelchair to push her out of the house because dead bodies are heavy. And although you had 2 guys, so you could actually just carry her out, at least 2 or 3 guys, you could carry her out. But I think they thought it might look more suspicious, maybe. It's hard to say why they decided to use this technique, but but you can't ignore the fact that Marta's DNA was on so they didn't do such a great job of wrapping her up either on the wheelchair. So if they took her out, then at this point she would go to a vehicle, or she would go to the dumpster. That was the word I was looking for, the dumpster. Now, one could say, why, where was the car then? Well, I don't know the street. So sometimes it's hard to park on certain streets. So maybe the person had to park a whole block away, or maybe they didn't want the vehicle seen. Could be a reason why they would then take the wheelchair and go all the way down the block to put the body in. Could that have happened? Yes. Or did they just use a dumpster where the guy thought he saw them at the dumpster? I don't know exactly. Again, if I were in Seville on that street re-examining this case, I'd like to see exactly how the cars are parked at night. I would like to see how far away the dumpster is. I want to see all these different issues to be able to determine whether it made sense they went to the dumpster and not to a parked car. The parked car issue, the problem there is that whose car was it? And when did they get it? Now, mind you, they didn't supposedly move her body to quite late. So she was already dead by 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the night. That body laid there for quite a long time, maybe because I couldn't figure out what the hell. I mean, this guy's going, what the hell do I do with her? Because generally speaking, your plan isn't to have a dead body in your house, which is why I tend to believe his story about the ashtray. Because raping and killing a girl in your house, in your brother's house, and you don't know if your brother's coming back or his girlfriend's coming. It just seems like not a bright thing to do. And there weren't bright people, but still, I think with his nature, I think it's more likely that he hit her. I just don't believe he hit her just one time. That's why I think she's dead. I think he hit her many times. And then he had a body laying in his house with blood on the floor. And he's like, what the hell? And I do think he probably called at least 1 or 2 or both of his friends to come over to help him because they're his gang. And I think they came over to help him. And then they were like sitting there, what the hell do we do? Now, again, they're not brain surgeons. They're not brilliant. They're not brilliant criminals even. So it's like they're kids. So what do you do with a dead body? And you have to come up with an idea. Now, whether the brother came up with an idea the older brother, I don't know. Whether he showed up and said, this is what you need to do. Maybe he showed up and did not have a car and said, look, I don't want to put her in my car. I'm not putting DNA in my car. I'm not getting involved in this shit. just wrap her up, put her in the dumpster. They'll come and take the trash away, and that's the best we can do under these circumstances. Let's clean up the house. That's kind of what I think would be more realistic. He couldn't keep his story straight. I don't know, Shara, whether he wasn't keeping his story straight or he purposely was changing his story, because he's also, in my opinion, psychopathic. So they like to change their stories. They like to play games. And one of the advantages to playing games is when you have 10 different stories, you leave a problem where you can't figure out which story it is. So it's hard to then determine what the charge should be. Is the charge an accidental death? Is the charge involuntary manslaughter? Is the charge homicide? Is the charge, murder one? I mean, and Spain has different versions of that. What is it that happened? And when you don't really know, and sometimes even what they like to do is throw out stories that turn out they can't even prove. So then it's just like, we can't go there. So now he's told us this, but we can't prove a rape. So what the hell are we supposed to do with that? So and somebody's just playing. Sometimes they just want to tell the police the body's everywhere in order to confuse them. And they did. They went through a river. They dug up half of the area of Seville. I mean, they've looked so many damn places, just like the Madeleine McCann issue, and they come up with nothing. And for him, he's probably going, awesome. Yeah, he's having fun. Yep, he's having fun. They both participated. I'm not sure who the both is. Okay, I got it. Let's see. Hannah says, as a former nurse, I find it quite ridiculous to ride a motorbike with a dead body. It's limp and heavy and difficult to control. Yes. If she were alive, it's different. If she were being kidnapped, it would be different. But it would be hard to believe they could put her in all of that and sit her in the middle of it doesn't work really well, does it? This is a go on from Tico, says, Colombians use barbed wires around the body to get rid of gas, I assume, the gas that lifts the body to the surface. Well, the Colombians are pretty, especially the Colombian cartel, they're pretty good at getting rid of bodies. They really are. I don't know what this is in reference to, but yes, camels do spit. Oh, no, he didn't. No. He didn't strangle someone with a knife. Supposedly, he put the knife to her neck to get her to cooperate with the rape. And then after she was taught, her hands were taped behind her back. Then he strangled her with the wires, the cords. Yeah. So that's questionable. Well, you can prove a crime. I think I discussed this on the Hangout the other week because you can prove a crime if there's enough evidence at the location, blood evidence, weapon evidence, DNA evidence, and confessions. That you can prove a crime without that. It was proven that she was murdered in that location due to her blood and the confession, and people seeing somebody taking out a body, pretty much. But if there hadn't been the blood did him in. That the blood was it. I mean, if there hadn't been blood on his jacket, I don't know what they would have had. And then he confessed. Now, he would have been smarter to not confess. They could say, "Why do you have blood on your jacket?" He could say, "Well, she had a nosebleed." And so I tried to help her, and she was like trying to cover the stuff up, and I must have touched my jacket with, and she had a nosebleed. Of course, the pool of blood that the luminol found is concerning. So I think he would have been smarter not to confess, but he did for whatever reasons at that time. Maybe because he thought they had him at that moment, and so he felt like if he confessed, he'd get he'd be treated nicer. So sometimes what'll happen with a killer is, you wonder why they do confess, and it's because they think they're going to get something back for the confession. And a lot of times the only reason they confess is because they do believe that you have enough evidence against them. Otherwise, they won't. And he didn't for quite a while till that blood came up. Then that kind of did him in. There was really no blood spatter, just just an area which looked like blood was on the floor. So, yeah, I don't know if there's any blood spatter. So then we could look at, did he hit her more than once with the heavy supposed ashtray? So would there have been blood spatter if he'd hit her many times with the ashtray? You would think, but I don't know. I don't know what I don't have crime scene photos. If she was just strangled, why would there be blood on the floor? So, or was she cut with a knife? See, there's so many stories in here that you could guesswork, but we can't guesswork. So this is reality. That when you're analyzing a crime, or when you're the police, when you're the prosecution, you can only go with what you got. And I say, I'm surprised he got 21 years. I really am. Not that I don't think I'm happy he's got 21 years. I just surprised he got him. Yeah, separated into grids. What would be the big search, at the landfill? Yeah, but even then, so much crap in there. There's a good question. When someone goes missing, how quickly do authorities usually check dumpsters utilized by suspects? Well, I would like to see them do that all the time. I would. I mean, first of all, the first problem is the going missing problem. Now, the family was all over this right away. They had, I think, filed like 3 police reports within like the first 12 hours. They knew there was something wrong. And they went there. But at one point in the documentary, the father says he goes there and he's like, they said, okay, well, we'll look into this on Monday. And he's like, what, don't you work on the weekends? But apparently the problem is, as people do not understand, most teenagers who disappear reappear. Most teenagers are over at their boyfriend's house, over at their friends' houses, they're doing drugs, they're drinking, they're having sex, they reappear. Some of them run away for a couple days and they reappear. And then the parent says, my child would never do that. And that is often not true. That's the problem. That parents will say that and it's not true. So the question is, when you talk about resources, manpower, money, if somebody says their kid's missing and then you go out, and you go everywhere, start searching everywhere in the city. You got 50 officers on it. You're going through every dumpster. You're looking at every location. You spend all this money, and then the next day they go, never mind, she's back. Now, if the parents were required to pay for every penny of those searches, I'd say yeah, but they never seem to have to pay for those searches. So when your kid disappears on you, and you tell the police that kid 100% has been kidnapped or murdered, and then your little brat shows up 3 days later, and you just go, oh, oops, and you don't have any responsibility for that. You have no penalty. Well, that's why the police go, you know how many parents come to us all the time telling us that their child is missing and was abducted and all this crap is happening, and most of them all come back. We can't run around the city chasing down every missing teen kid until we know they're really, really missing. So in this particular case, yeah, actually they moved in fairly quickly, considering, in my opinion. But how often would they check the dumpsters? I can't figure out in this case whether they ever checked the dumpsters before they went away. I didn't see that in the documentary. I haven't seen it elsewhere. Would it be nice if, well, let's see. Yeah, I don't know. When did those dumpsters get picked up? The trash bins. When did they get taken away? Were they taken away right away before the police were even involved, and they were already in the landfill? And then maybe that's one of the reasons he decided to go with, hey, we dumped her in the river. Maybe brother helped him come up with that good one. Just say he dumped her in the river. That way they'll all go to the river and nobody's going to go look in the trash cans. Nobody's going to look in the landfill. So how often does it happen they do that? I honestly don't know. I wish I did. And I guess it depends on the police department. It depends on the case. It depends. Yeah. Michaela, you are so mean. True. True. What? What are you talking about? Pat does not have an iPhone. Seriously, really? I have an iPhone. Oh, I can't do that. I just almost knocked myself off. I have an iPhone. I have an iPad. Yeah, I have everything. You just don't understand. It's called StreamYard. It's the program that and the internet that make things have to come from one place to another, and then sometimes they just don't show up. Things go wrong. Either when you click on things, they don't click well enough, and therefore you think it came over and it didn't. And sometimes the internet will not bring it over. It takes me hours. I don't understand it, but it takes hours for things to get from one location to another location. It's I do have an iPhone. I do know how to use it too. Oh my goodness. You're so mean out here. Pat, do you think Pat loses her car in the grocery parking lot? Okay. Now, I actually have a reason. I actually do lose my car in the grocery store parking lot. Do you know why? Because I drive this little red Mazda Miata, right? It's a really small car. So what happens is if I park in the parking lot and then later a huge, big 4x4 vehicle, black vehicle goes in and parks next to me. When I walk out of the store, I look around and my car is gone. And even if there's no cars left on the lot except that black SUV or whatever, it's blocking my entire car. It looks like my car's been stolen. So actually, I have had that problem. Not because I don't know where I parked the car, but because it vanishes behind other cars. You see? Oh, did the ashtray break? That's a good question. I don't know. He did not see one of the problems we're doing with the documentary. I don't speak Spanish. I don't know if the police reports are even available outside of what we saw in the documentary. It's a very heavy ashtray. They showed it as a very heavy, one of those huge glass ashtrays that if you whack somebody in the head, it would do severe damage and not break. So we're not talking about a little thing. No, that thing would do damage and not break. Let's say, well, here's a point. Did she end up in the landfill? I don't know. And they just simply didn't find her. Again, I really don't know. Liars got lucky. Well, luck plays a lot. Luck plays a tremendous amount. For example, there was a huge rain. The weather was horrific, cold and massive rain at the time in Seville. Now, let's say it was an outside crime. Well, there goes all your evidence. All the blood evidence washes away. The DNA washes away. Footprints wash away. So that could do a great deal of damage right there. The fact that they had blood on that wheelchair was super, super lucky. And blood on his coat, super, super lucky. So there were two very lucky things, but that they couldn't find her body. These guys aren't, I don't think they're not masterminds, but you do get lucky sometimes. And so however she was dumped, they just can't find her. And one day they might, but they just didn't. So the fact that they were able to convict him of homicide in spite of that is pretty good. Let's see. Lisa N says, I think with sentencing, he was not given the benefit of any doubt because he lied. Well, he didn't lie. He lied and 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 lied, and destroyed evidence that could have proved things were much worse. So Mac's sentence was for non-premeditated homicide. I think it's a good point. I think he pissed them off to such an extent that in the covering up of what happened with all the massive lies, that in spite of the ashtray story, which I think is legit, it might be legitimate, because of all his cover-up, it could well have been worse than just the ashtray. And so I'm not sure how the Spanish system works on how he actually got convicted of something that wasn't proven more than the ashtray. I'm surprised the defense attorney didn't end up with a winner on that, 3-year deal that she was trying to get. Oh, did you see the swagger with which now long-haired El Cuco entered the court room in that trial thing later on? Yes, I did. El Cuco, then he came in with his long hair, and he was like, yep. Yeah, I don't know. He might be pretty psychopathic too. Who knows? And I think that in a sense could put some doubt. That along with the knife issue could put doubt in people's minds that maybe he's more sick than just helping out his friend get rid of a body. Maybe sick enough to help his friend do something to the body before it became one. But they couldn't prove it. So, and he was supposedly infatuated with her, but when he's infatuated and he's, oh my God, she's so pretty, I'm in love with her, blah, blah, blah. What does that mean? Because again, if you're a healthy human being, that can be just, oh, that's sweet. If you're not a healthy human being, it can be creepy. So I don't know. Don't know. Lisa says, I thought it showed the Spanish police and justice system in a good light. I think people would argue that, but I didn't think it was terrible, though I wasn't too sure about the police part of it. Didn't know anything about them before the documentary, but they seem solid and not flashy or ego-driven. Good job for fair outcome. They did seem like they were trying to stay to doing the proper things in the required way. And I do think the outcome, in my opinion, like you, I think they got as good an outcome as they could get under the circumstances. And I think a better outcome than I expected. No incinerator. No, not that I know of. Somebody did claim later on that they didn't just put her body in the wheelchair and take her to the dumpster, but they took her to another apartment and cut her up. That's all nonsense stuff. I don't think that at all. But maybe that's where he had a knife, and the knife was thrown down a drain. So, but was it his knife? No, it was no proof it was his knife, but he didn't ask his mommy to get rid of his knife. So, you wonder about these things. Did he have a knife with him? Did he throw a knife down the drain? Did they use the knife for something that wasn't killing her or threatening her? Did they use the knife to cut rope, cut stuff? Did they use the knife? Don't know. The knife could have been used in the commission of the crime and then thrown down the drain. Don't know. Wish we had to know. Yeah. I appreciate the Michaela, because when I came into the show, I'm like, this show is, information is such a mess. I mean, I was like overwhelmed with it, as I'm sure many people watch a documentary because of so many names and so many stories. And yes, it's true, people. I do not I do as much research as I can in a reasonable amount of time, but no, I don't sit there and take 50 hours worth of notes, because that'll be unaffordable. I don't have a million. When I get 1 million viewers, I'll change my mind on that. But Tanya says, I think like you, Pat, the simple plan and execution was the first story. First stories are interesting because they're usually closer to the truth than later stories, because that's when you have time to think things through and add and elaborate and create and all that stuff. More likely to be closer to the truth. However, that he hit it just one time, that it's like, I just had one drink, officer. I kind of think he had more than one drink. Yeah. That's my theory on that. Tony also says, dumpster story makes the most sense and easiest and fastest. Yeah, especially when you're like three little losers. You know what I mean? And a loser brother. It also seems to be a loser. So it's like, what do we do? What do we do? Just dump her in the dumpster. A lot of times that's what you do, because it's quicker. The body's away from you. Nobody sees you with it. Well, at least except for the guy at the dumpster, which is really sucked for them, But and the idea being that the longer you take to go from A to B to get rid of a body, the more chance you had to be stopped by police, to be seen by somebody, and all that kind of stuff. So usually panic sets in, and you want to deal with it as quickly as you can. Molly's finally here. Hi, Molly. A little late, but hey. Pity Marta's dad didn't check the dumpsters himself. Again, I don't even know what the truth is. I don't know if the family did any of these things. I don't know how it works, but yeah. I don't. And again, I don't even know when the dumpsters were dumped. That's information I really can't find at this point. Maybe, I don't know what Tikkun, maybe only do 1/3, 1/2, 2/3 of the time for good behavior. I don't know what the Spanish system is on that. So if you're Spanish, put below on that. Let's see. Walter Matilda says, El Cuco admired and coveted the life of Miguel, even coveted his girlfriend. Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely a budding psycho. Uh, I can't say he's a budding psycho, but they said he was a kid from a pretty screwed up family. And it's kind of like you know, finding a mentor or somebody he admired. Yeah, he wanted what this guy had, what he thought this guy had, which was good looks. I'll say that, good looking dude. And good looks and more than one woman, a motorcycle. And, he's still only 15. So, his ideas of what is cool may be very different than when he's 25. And here comes Marta, and Marta's, he's going to get Marta, and he knows Marta, and he likes her. And I don't know that it means that he's a budding psycho, but did he look up to Miguel? I'm going to say yes. And again, I don't know. We'll have to wait for the Spanish people to come through on that one. Oh, that's a very good point, Tanya. Do you not think the length of the sentence was in part due to the massive amount of press and publicity that he paid the ultimate price? Yes, that's why he did not want the jury trial. That's why he was actually, I think, willing to say, okay, I raped her, because he wanted a bench trial, because he was afraid that because he was so hated. And look at the people on the street. Oh, I don't know did I show you this? Oh, maybe I didn't even show you this on my little teeny weeny stupid pictures. Let me see if I can find these cute. I thought this was, yeah, here he is. They're bringing him out. Bastard, scumbag, son of a bitch, murderer. These people are shrieking and yelling at him. I mean, the whole streets are full of them yelling, all kinds of things. Hijo de puta, all kinds of nasty things at him. He had to think, I'm doomed here. There's no way a jury from this area is going to be a fair trial. So he wanted to go for a bench trial. Maybe even his attorney told him, just claim you did this. You'll get a bench trial. You can always maybe. And it was very confusing. I think he did end up with a jury trial, but it was, again, I searched for good information on that and couldn't get it. I think that they did hate him, and they thought he killed this innocent girl, and it was a flaming liar. And wouldn't tell the parents where her body was. And so he's destroyed this family, destroyed these parents. And I think they hated the heck out of him. So I think you have a good point there. I think that may have encouraged the very, very long sentence. Similar to the comedy with two guys stuck with a body, and they moved around with it like he was alive, trying to dispose of the body. That's Weekend at Bernie's, which I really liked when I first saw it. And then I saw it recently and thought, oh, that's a horrible movie. But yes, that's Weekend at Bernie's. This guy's dead and they keep trying to pretend he's alive. Yeah. And it has some amusing points, but I saw it when I was a lot younger and I thought it was really, really funny. Now that I'm older, it was like, oh, is that funny? No, not really. But let's see. Lisa says, the most interesting aspect to me was the impact on the people of Seville. Seeing them coming out on the streets like that for a missing girl with no other factors at play. Fascinating. Yeah, I too found that amazing, because that is not a U.S. thing at all. I mean, there's usually the families who lose somebody, say, unless it's a racial issue, and then they have large organizations backing. Somebody just loses their child or whatever. Usually what you see is them just standing there by their pitiful selves with a few family members around. And they don't get that kind of stuff. It's incredible. I was amazed. Yes. Confusion as a goal for a psycho. Yeah. Psychopaths like confusion. They like playing games. They like watching you get confused, watching you go, what the heck is it? And sit there and think, because he's manipulating, and he likes to manipulate. So, yep, I think that's that guy. Absolutely. I do think that's that guy. All right. So anyway, that's my, I hope I brought shed some light on this particular case and how a profiler would think about it, and why I think that things went as well as they could under the circumstances, and what I think probably happened, although can't prove exactly some of those things. So sometimes you're left with things that aren't answered. And I know there's so many times people think that there should be this absolute answer. And if a profiler, criminal profiler, comes and says, well, it's clear to me, and just rolls all this stuff out when it isn't supported by evidence, they're just developing. It's just nonsense, and they're putting out a fantasy, and that's not scientific. So try to stick with scientific things when you're trying to analyze, because when you go past that, then it's just, you're being just as creative as a psychopath. You kind of don't want to have that same, don't want to do that. No. Lisa Ann says, thank you so much for a great show. As always, love hearing your insights on the confusing cases. Well, thank you. Sometimes, when I pick the case, I'm not aware of how it's actually going to end up. And there's a moment on a few cases where I go into a panic somewhere the night before where I go, what the heck am I even going to talk about? This case is like, and I've got a show tomorrow. and will I be able to put these things together in a way that is useful to people? Because again, I'm just not a storyteller. Make life a lot easier. If I just want to tell the story of what happened to Marta, I could just go through the case and show you pictures without losing them. And it'll be so much easier. But when you're actually trying to analyze and have purpose come out of your shows, sometimes there are a few of these which are just really scary when I get into them, because I'm like, oh, man, it's much more complicated and complex and confusing, and so much of the information is simply not available. And that's what sometimes it makes it so hard. But what the heck? I'll try anyway. Joe says, very interesting. Not that confusing either. Just a shame they'll never find her body. They might one day, but CJ, hi CJ. Talking out loud helps formulate ideas, I think. I do think so. I kind of really like the concept with, like, even with profiling and detectives. I believe in the team concept, because I think instead of having our ego say that I'm the only one who can figure stuff out, it's nice to have a team where you can bounce things off of each other. Because as you say, as you try to explain something, sometimes things just come to light. And then sometimes somebody will say something and you go, that one I just hadn't thought of. That is a great point. And now that you say that, and you keep building, that's the great thing about a team. So personally, I like the concept of a team in all investigative kind of efforts. And not to have just, to say, one big fat ego rolling along, thinking they can figure everything out by themselves. So I like that. So anyway, that's it. Most welcome. What? I don't have super stickers. Well, this question, I do not. My shows do not have super stickers. Those are only for live shows to the public, and I stopped doing them because I did not like what happens in the chat room with the wide open to the public, all kinds of crazy stuff. And then I did not like the super sticker stuff during these live shows. What'll happen? I feel like I accidentally did it once, and you can earn a lot of money that way. You can, and it really supports the channel. But I swear to God, I felt like a go-go dancer or a stripper, and people were like putting money in my panties. It's like, here's $20. Oh, thank you. Here's $20. Thank you. It kind of grossed me out. But anyway, and I'm like, no. I don't want my show to be about begging for money the entire bloody show. So, but you can. There is when the show is this right now. If you're here for the live part, this is not public at the moment. After I hopefully get the monetization done, then the show goes public. Below the actual show, there is a little $sign, and you can click on that and you can donate to the channel. You can do that. And I always appreciate that. Believe me, that does help keep the channel alive. But I really just don't want it happening during the show because it's kind of super creepy. It really is. Alrighty then. Well, there is that. We know where you live, Joe. So anybody who's heading over to England, Joe's waiting for you in his boxing shorts. Big Ren. All right. Anyway, thank you all for being here. I really, the case was fascinating to me, and I like once in a while to say something nice about a documentary because, I get a reputation for trashing things. So I like sometimes to support other people. I like to support other profilers, detectives, other channels. I like to support certain movies and documentaries when I can. And this was one I found was very interesting as far, not only for the actual, I say it was a little confusing as far as the information went, but I did really like the way they presented it as far as the impact it had on Seville. I thought that was fascinating. So if you're from Spain, again, do comment below. I'd appreciate it because I don't claim to know all of what I'm talking about when it comes to this case or about Spain. So thank you for being here. See you next time.